Hi, this is Joe Ziemba, the host of When Football Was Football here on the Sports History Network. Aside from my podcasting duties, I'm also a sports collector. And as such, I'm very pleased to share the exciting news that the Sports History Network has partnered with Rochester Sports Autographs, the largest JSA authenticated autograph distributor in the United States, where you can get deals on over 30,000 autograph sports collectibles. So as a collector, I was very pleased when I visited the site of Rochester Sports Autographs. The massive inventory is easy to search, carefully documented, and visually appealing. The options seem limitless, whether you're looking for an autographed baseball, signed football helmets, or basketball jerseys, among thousands of others. I found everything from a Babe Ruth autograph, a signed football by Dick Butkus, and an autographed Larry Bird basketball jersey. And as a collector, you'll be delighted with the very competitive pricing on JSA authenticated products. Made possible since RSA deals directly with athletes, so there's no extra markup, and the savings are passed on directly to the customer. Perhaps you're looking for an early gift for Mother's Day or Father's Day. Heck, who needs a holiday as an excuse to give a piece of sports history to your loved ones? Or how about yourself? Today seems like a great day to add to your own sports collection, right? RSA even has film, music, and other entertainment autographs on the site, so there's something for everyone. All orders from Rochester Sports Autographs are top quality and shipped to your door with top authentication and a money-back guarantee. And to make sure RSA knows that the Sports History Network sent you, we created a special link for you. All you need to do is head to shoprsa.com/SHN. That's shoprsa.com/SHN to get your own piece of sports history today.
We're within weeks of the gem of thoroughbred racing, the Kentucky Derby, and to prepare, we're going to talk about one of the greatest riders and horses in history. As an award-winning author on the subject, talks about his book, The Turcottes, the remarkable story of Horse Racing Dynasty, Secretariat, and more, with Curtis Stock, coming up in just a moment. Hey, this is Darren Hayes. You've probably heard me on the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch. Well, welcome to my journey of learning more about sports history, and we're going to do it by learning about the great athletes and the uniforms that they wore, as they both tell a lot about the games that we love and have watched so much throughout most of our lives. These are the chronicles I'm going to share with you on what I've learned through my journey in the Sports Jersey Dispatch. Hello, my friends of sports history. This is Darren Hayes of the Sports Jersey Dispatch podcast. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your place for all things great in sports history. And you are in for a real treat today, as same as I am, as we are going to be talking to an author that is a Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame inductee, an 11-time sovereign winner as a writer for the best thoroughbred story of the year. He has a new book out called The Turcottes, the remarkable story of the Horse Racing Dynasty. His name is Curtis Stock. Curtis, welcome to the Pig Pen.
Wow, thank you for having me.
Well, sir, it is quite an honor. I want to mention that yourself and Firefly Books have sent me a copy of your book to pre-read, and I got done reading it a couple weeks ago, and wow, I was like floored by this amazing story that you shared with the world about this great thoroughbred racing family, and we'll get back to more of them in a second. But I guess we want to learn a little bit more about you. We know you are Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame inductee, and you've been writing for over 3 decades.
Yeah.
How maybe you could tell us a little bit about your writing career and how you became involved with horse racing.
Well, I started at the writing at the University of Calgary newspaper, and I used to write stories, and I'd put them under the name of Forward Pass, and I'd slip them under the door of the Gauntlet, was the newspaper then. And then they'd appear in the next issue, and I thought, this is great. And I kept writing them until I found out that they got paid for it. And then I walked in and I said, I'm Forward Pass.
That's got to be one of the all-time great pen names, that Forward Pass. I love it.
Yeah. Well, there was a thoroughbred named Forward Pass too. So.
Oh, okay. I was thinking from a football connection.
Well, football, yeah, everything, yeah.
You're right. Okay, so so you wrote the sports, you finally were getting paid for it. So how did the
Yeah.
connection into the thoroughbred racing come about?
Well, my parents used to have friends. They were called the Morrisons, who lived in Calgary, Alberta. That's where we lived and where I grew up. And they used to go to the races all the time. And one day I tagged along with them and my first bet was a Quinella, and it paid $36, and I won. And I thought, how easy is this? And I was hooked.
Yeah, that seems like you always do that when you first go to a racetrack, or you take somebody to track for the first time, and they always win, and they like set that hook in you, and then
That's right, and then they're really in. Yeah.
It's amazing how they do that. Okay, you been writing about Canadian horse racing for a long time, and this family that you wrote your book about, the Turcottes. Am I saying their name correctly? Turcottes.
Turcottes.
The Turcottes. Okay. Now, I mean, I really didn't know much about them, other than I knew that Ron rode, the famous race, the Triple Crown with Secretariat, which I'm sure we'll get more into here in a minute. But boy, I didn't know about their story. But you take the story of this family from the very beginnings, their very humble beginnings, and take their life story through some high points and low points all through the book. And wow, it's really an amazing journey you take the readers on.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It is quite a journey that they went through. I mean, it's the odds of five brothers from a lumberjack family becoming thoroughbred jockeys, and all good ones, is got to be 1,000,000 to 1.
It certainly does. And, not just lumberjack family, but they were kind of what I guess we would consider in our day to be, I got the impression, pretty poverty stricken at the time.
Yeah. And their house burned down about 3 weeks before Christmas, and they were left with nothing. Everything they had was gone. And the dad of the family was so broke that he had canceled the insurance policy just days before.
Oh, tragic. But they seemed to survive. Seems like they had a pretty nice bunch of people in their community that really helped them out, and some of the older siblings that had moved away. It seemed like they were coming back and trying to help out the family, and they pulled together, and you could tell that there was definitely a love in that family. And I think that's a really important thing that helped keep them together in those early tragedies of the fire.
Yeah, for sure. Like the province or the Drummond, the town really all came together for them and helped them out, and got them clothes from the Salvation Army, and it was, I mean, they were starting from nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, maybe you could describe where Drummond is for the listeners.
It's in New Brunswick, which is a province in the Maritimes, and it's on the western border of New Brunswick, close to Grand Falls.
Okay. All right. So, and this is, I guess at the time, this would have been like the late 1950s, early 1960s.
A little earlier, yeah, when the fire happened, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, things, this is kind of a remote town, I'm guessing, with being a lot of lumber industry. Lumber and potato farming. Okay. Well, you got a little bit of food and something to burn to keep you warm, huh? And make a living on. But so I guess the story really centers around most of it with the brother Ron Turcotte, and he started his early career of working with his father as a lumberjack, and it was pretty hard labor. It was, yeah. I mean, they'd be gone for months at a time, and it was Ron's job to look after the horses in the lumberjacks when they felled the trees, and then they'd have the horses haul the trees, and they would cut them and send them to the mill. So Ronnie, he grew up with the horses. They were draft horses, a lot bigger than thoroughbreds, a lot slower too. But that's where he got his love for horses. He knew nothing at all about horse racing. I mean, his start into horse racing was unbelievable. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, and you portray that very well in the book. I don't even think you even say the word thoroughbred racing or any connotation towards racing, except for the workhorse that the family had to help with the trees, like you just described. So how does Ron become connected with horse racing?
Well, it's an unbelievable story, really. He went to Toronto from Drummond. He was tired of working in the woods and he wanted to get a job. He was hoping to be a carpenter, like his older brother was in Toronto. But when he got to Toronto, there was a carpenter's strike. So he wound up picking worms in graveyards and golf courses, and he'd get $3 for 1,000 worms. So he wasn't making much money. And he went down there with his good friend Reg Peltier, and they were broke, and they had run out of money, and they were about to leave. And Ron came down the boarding house stairs where he was staying in Toronto when they went to Toronto, and the landlord happened to be watching the Kentucky Derby, which Ron knew nothing about. And he asked what he was watching, and he said, Kentucky Derby. It's the biggest horse race in the world. And the landlord said, you can't find a job. This is what you should be doing. You should be a jockey. And Ron said, what's a jockey? And the landlord said, the little guys in the white pants. And the next day they went to Woodbine Racetrack, and somehow, some way, they got past the security, and the racing secretary at the time took him across the street to E.P. Taylor's barn, which was one of the biggest barns in Canadian horse racing history, and he got a job as a hot walker.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think he had to really transform his body to get to the point of being a jockey, because here's a guy that I'm assuming had to be a pretty strapping lad from handling lumber and doing the hard labor of what he was did back at home, and had to get down to weight. And you talk a lot about that with not only Ron but with his brothers as well.
Yeah, Ron didn't. He was lucky. He had a battle weight at the start. He weighed 128 pounds when he first came to the track, and was told he had to get down to 108, which is still a lot of weight to lose. But one of his youngest brother, Yves, weighed 150 pounds, and he got down somehow. But Rudy battled the weight, Noel battled the weight, Yves battled the weight, and Roger battled the weight. And they would do everything they could to lose weight. They'd go into steam boxes and saunas, and they'd put on heavy layers of clothing and turn up the heat on the car as high as it would go and drive for hours, and take diuretics like Lasix. And, and they would, there's a lot of jockeys that, really have a bad time of it and are bulimic, and they purge, and it's not a easy or a fun part of the job.
No, I guess not. So I guess that's one of the many tragedies that you talk about. I mean, it's a tragic situation where these guys have to make weight, not only the Turcottes, but like you said, their counterparts who were the other riders on the thoroughbreds. And it's kind of a sad state that we don't really appreciate what these men and women do to keep their jobs and their livelihood, because like you described, they won't let them on the horse and in races, so they aren't making any money if they go overweight.
Right. No, they have to weigh at least 115 pounds to get a job these days, with the saddle and then the equipment that they have to ride at 118. So you got to be light to be a jockey, and it's something that should be changed, because the scale of weights has been around. The same scale of weights has been around for hundreds of years, and kids are bigger these days than they used to be. People are bigger, and they should boost it up and not make it as difficult as it is. In Europe, they ride with a lot more weight. European jockeys can weigh like 130 pounds sometimes even.
Jeez, I guess if they wanted me to be a rider, I'd only be able to put like one leg up on the horse or something. I'd have to chop it off me or something, I guess.
Yeah. It's definitely a grueling part of the job, and you got to watch everything you eat, and you can't eat very much, and it's tough.
Ron sort of had to work his way through the ranks, though, to even get to the point of being jockey. Besides losing weight, he had to go through some of the other labor duties that are associated with racing.
Yeah, he was a hot walker at first. When he got the job, the first day he got the job, the guy Joe Thomas said, "Here you go," and Ron said, "What do you do?" And he said, just keep turning left. So he just would lead the horse and they would go around and around in circles, turning left. And he did that for about a year. And then the farm manager said, you know something about horses, don't you? And Ronnie said, well, I grew up in a lumberjack family and my job was to look after the horses. And he says, I can tell. He says, because you like horses and they like you. So he had that affinity for horses all along, even though before then, he had never ridden in a saddle even. Like he rode bareback, these big draft horses.
That's amazing. And I think it comes up a couple times during the book, during your story, especially with Ron, that he sort of recognizes things in horses, some of their characteristics and their traits, and knows if he's going to like them and knows if he's going to work with them. He's sort of almost like a horse whisperer, I guess.
Yeah, it's true, because trainers used to come to him for advice on what to do with their horses. If the horse wasn't running good or whatever, they would go to Ronnie and ask him what they should be doing. And he would tell them what the horse needed, a different bridle, different bit, blinkers or whatever. Riva Ridge, who almost won the Triple Crown the year before Secretariat in 1972, was a very timid horse. And Ron and a couple outriders worked with him so that he wasn't be afraid of horses anymore, because Riva Ridge was very finicky and very shy. And he would duck away from other horses. So they would put a horse on each side of him and gallop down the stretch. And then they would have him come inside a horse and around a horse. And Lucien Laurent was the trainer, but Ronnie, I think, was the real trainer of Riva Ridge and Secretariat.
Now, is it common, because I'm not, super familiar with racing, is it common for the jockeys to be that attached to their horse? No? Okay, so
no.
This is kind of special what Ron Turcotte was doing with these horses.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he just had an affinity for horses, and they listened to him, and he listened to them. Like you say, he could have been a horse whisperer.
Yeah. Okay, so he has this great ride in 1972 in Riva Ridge, has some success, after having a great career in Canada, the Canadian Racer of the Year, I believe, a couple of times, or some major awards in Canada. Comes down
2 years after he came to Toronto. 2 years after he was out of the woods, he was Canada's leading rider.
Amazing. Yeah. After losing almost 20% of your body weight too. So,
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And living in the city for the first time. Amazing. Now he takes 2 legs of the Triple Crown with Riva Ridge.
Right.
And during that time that he's with Riva Ridge, he becomes associated with Secretariat. And maybe I love the way that you describe his first instincts and his first look of what he felt about Secretariat.
Well, when he first saw the horse, he said to Lucien Laurent, the trainer, he said, wow, who's that big fella? And, he knew that, this horse was a great looking horse. Someone wrote a long time ago that Secretariat had muscles in his eyelashes. So Secretariat could run. They always knew, like right when he was a 2-year-old, he was very special. They knew he was going to be something good. He was a big horse, but he wasn't overly big. But, he wasn't clumsy or anything. He was fast horse. He was the greatest horse of all time.
Took the opportunity a few days ago to watch a YouTube video of that Belmont Stakes in 1973. And, I was a little young. I was only like 6 years old when that race was run. I never really appreciated as much as I did now that I'm in my 50s, sitting and watching that. But wow, what a race. He's in on the rail most of the race, and a couple horses jumped out ahead of him, maybe by a half a length or something. But he got right in there in the mix, and then about the halfway point, he really started to pull away.
Yeah, lead just kept widening and widening and widening, and he won as we know, by 31 lengths, which is about the size of a football field. So it was an unbelievable moment. And Ron, Lucien kept saying, just don't fall off. He said, what is he doing? What is he doing? Why is he going so fast? He's going to have nothing left. But Ron said that Secretary did it all on his own. He never asked him to run at all.
Wow, truly amazing. And of course, Secretariat has been and Ron alongside him has just been immortalized, with having a movie, major motion picture made about him and telling the story. I saw there was a bronze statue of Ron on Secretariat. I believe it was from the Belmont. That photo there with the checkerboard pattern on Secretariat, and there's just been amazing things have happened. So getting to hear the story of the rider that was on Secretariat that you've done, sir, is just quite a service to tell us the whole full picture of that, not just hear about the beast he was on, but the man that was riding it and has a great big part of the race as well.
Well, that statue of Secretariat and Ron Turcotte is in Grand Falls, New Brunswick, where Ron lives. So
okay,
it's a centerpiece of the town.
It looks like it's gigantic. I would say 8 foot tall or something on it.
Yeah, it could be. It'd be about that size. Yeah.
Amazing. Quite a tribute to him. So that was sort of Ron's high point, I guess, at 72 and 73 Secretariat. I mean, how could you get any better having a horse, the greatest horse of all time, probably in Secretariat? So
right, but he rode a lot of good horses. I mean, Fort Marcy and Chouvet, and he rode most of the best horses that were around at that time when he was riding.
Okay, and he's being sort of the first generation rider. Like like you said earlier, his family didn't really have any riding experience. He didn't really know much about it. But his younger siblings aspired to be like their brother Ron, and maybe you could tell us about a couple of those guys.
Well, Noel was the first one to follow him, and Noel wanted to be an electrician, and he actually, after their house burned down, he rewired the new house that they built, but he wasn't really sure he wanted to be a jockey. But when he saw how much money that Ron was making and how much little he was making in the forest, it changed his mind, and he went and followed Ron to Toronto. And then after Noel, then Rudy came along, and Rudy always wanted to be a jockey. He just used to dream of being a jockey, and he'd practice how he would look in the winner's circle and how he would pose and how he would talk to reporters. And Rudy really wanted to be a jockey. And then Roger was the leading apprentice rider in North America in 1975. And then Ease came along, and he was one of the top jockeys in Alberta here.
Just a tremendous story. So you had 5 brothers in all that had some great prominence in North American horse racing. That's quite an honor for that family, I'm sure.
Yeah, a family of 14 kids too.
Wow, tremendous. Now there were some bad things that befell this family. They had the fire earlier in their life, but as they became more well-renowned in the horse racing, some tragedies befell the family. And I don't know if do you want to like to speak about those a little bit?
Yeah, well, Ronnie, of course, he broke his back in 1978 in New York, and he uses the wheelchair now, and he was just really getting to the top of his career when that had to happen, and that was obviously a major tragedy in horse racing in North America. But Noel and Rudy and Roger, they were alcoholics, and Rudy died from alcoholism, and Roger and Noel both took their lives. And Eves was hurt in a race in Alberta in 1999 and fractured his skull and had 3 brain bleeds and was told he could never ride again. So they all had their share of troubles.
Yeah, that just tells you, what a stressful and dangerous sport it really is. You have these, large animals that you're riding at breakneck speeds, and some bad things can happen. And it did befall a couple of these brothers. So, wow, amazing story. Now, I guess before we go too much further here, maybe you could once again tell us the name of the book and where folks might be able to get a copy of it. It's
Turcottes, a remarkable story of a horse racing dynasty. It's been on Amazon for about a couple weeks, and it's now in bookstores. It'll be at Barnes & Noble, right? And it's in bookstores just this week. It just came out this week, so.
Yeah, it's a beautiful cover, folks. That has the name, the Turcottes in big bold letters, and there's a picture of our guy Ron Turcotte on Secretariat. Looks like at the Belmont on a beautiful photograph.
Yeah, it is a good photograph. It's an iconic photograph. We have actually a picture of that in our basement. It was signed by Ronnie, so it's a good picture.
Now, I take it you've had some association with the family and have been able to talk to them through the book?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I went to New Brunswick 3 years ago, and I spent 3 days with Ronnie, and he was just couldn't have been more accommodating and helpful, and, would talk about whatever you wanted to talk about. But before that, I had known Yves because he rode in Alberta, and he lives in St. Albert, which is a suburb of Edmonton where I live. So I got to know him very well, and we had hundreds of hours of conversations. And Roger, before he took his life, we went to dinner many times, and he told me, a lot of stories about how stressful it was to be a jockey, and he got hurt. And he was never the same after he got hurt, but I knew him very well. And I tracked down Rudy when most people didn't even know where Rudy was. He was in Florida, and he wasn't riding anymore, and he was not in good shape. But I talked to him hours on the phone too. And Noel was the only one of the 5 brothers that I never did speak to.
Wow. And you definitely, I think you did their story justice, and you brought honor to the family. And, you, like I said earlier, you took me, the reader, and those who are going to buy this book, you take us on quite a journey. It's an emotional journey. You really become connected to these men that, rode so bravely on these horses. And, you feel their pain, you feel their excitement, and that's the object of great writing. And sir, I think you get that in this book. So I think this book's going to do very well for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope you're right.
Yeah, I think I will be. And I think maybe you'll see some movies out of this, or some kind of television program or something, because this is a really, really incredible story about this family, and very well written. And, folks, make sure you get a copy of this book. Let's, support this author and this family's story, because it's definitely one that needs to be told. And Mr. Stock does it quite well. Now, I guess one question I got to ask you before we let you go. Now, who do you like in the Kentucky Derby? It's going to be coming up in a few weeks here.
Well, I like the favorite, Forte, but I don't bet favorites, so I'm looking for a long shot, and I still haven't found one yet. But I won't be betting on Forte, but I think he'll probably win. He's a pretty good horse.
Okay. All right, sir. Well, I appreciate you for your time, and we'll make sure people get your book. It's called The Turcottes, The Remarkable Story of a Horse Racing Dynasty. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it's in many bookstores here the last few weeks. So, Mr. Curtis Stock, we appreciate you coming on and telling us about this book and this great story about the Turcotte family.
I appreciate you having me.
Sorry, but my pitching coach just called timeout, and he's coming out to the mound. I think I'm going to get yanked for a reliever. We'll see you back tomorrow for some more great sports history on Sports Jersey Dispatch Podcast. We invite you to check out our websites, jerseydispatch.com and pigskindispatch.com. Not only see the daily sports history, but to experience the preservation of great events and people that play the games. Find us on Pigskin Dispatch. It's also on social media outlets of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all your daily sports history. Pigskin Dispatch is happy to be associated with the Sports History Network, the sports headquarters of yesteryear, found at sportshistorynetwork.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hi, this is Joe Ziemba, the host of When Football Was Football, here on the Sports History Network. I'm very pleased to announce that I will be partnering with the Sports History Network to give away 2 copies of my latest book called Bears vs. Cardinals, the NFL's Oldest Rivalry. To enter, just head over to the following link, sportshistorynetwork.com/ Giveaways. We hope you'll enjoy the numerous stories in the book, which is largely based on the newly released Dutch Tournament collection at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Dutch was the co-owner of the early Chicago Bears with George Halas and kept correspondence, financial records, and scouting reports, which now allow us to peek into the management of an NFL club during the first few years of the league's existence. Along the way, we'll meet unusual gridiron characters from years gone by, including a quarterback who could throw the ball farther behind his back than he could throwing it forward, a Bears lineman who was such a good tavern fighter that he decided to enter the boxing universe, and a Cardinals halfback who gave up the NFL rushing title by deciding to not show up for his team's final game of the season. And can we forget the time the Al Capone mob interrupted a Bears-Cardinals game? The new book was fun to research, and I hope you will enter our free contest today. Once the winners are selected, we'll be in touch regarding shipping as well as to inscribe the book personally for you. This might make a perfect gift for Mother's or Father's Day, or simply add it to your own personal collection. Once again, enter by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways. Thank you and good luck.